Hi, this is Catherine Lang-Cline, and welcome to the Secret Art of Business. Today, I am super excited to have Francie Henry, one of my most favorite CEOs in the Columbus area, and she is a regional president at Fifth Third. I do love Fifth Third. I'm going to have her talk about it a little bit, but I do have some of my money. Um, so I definitely trust Fifth Third as an institution. But Francie, let's talk a little bit about Fifth Third. What is some of the favorite things you like to say about it as its CEO?
So look, I'm blessed to be with the organization for over 38 years, Catherine. So I
Wow.
remember, yeah, I was 12 when we joined. So if your listeners are,
Of course.
the math, then you know. But
Yes, yes.
look, at a basic level, I love building relationships, and banking, in my humble estimation, is all about trusting and building relationships to help people use the financial side of their life to help achieve their dreams, right? So our goal is, to understand what those dreams are, and we're here to help support that, and we're servant leaders. So it's a marvelous profession to be in, to be able to help bring individuals, companies full circle. When I
I
joined the
love that.
bank,
The fact that you've been there, yeah, the fact that you've been there for so long says a
yeah,
lot.
well, we were 3 billion when I started. So it was a pretty small organization, mostly headquartered in Cincinnati. Now we're the 12th largest bank in the country,
Oh my
200
goodness.
billion dollars in assets, a multi-state region, but what I will say to you is that the spirit that in which I started and embarked upon, the spirit that the organization has is to provide a local delivery model still exists today. So regardless of our size and scope, we are a very large bank with tremendous resources that are very committed to our communities. And that's why I have the great fortune of being the regional president for Central Ohio, to make sure that I am meeting the needs of our customers and our communities, bringing the big bank resources, but acting very much like a very small community bank in the delivery model. So it,
I,
it
yeah.
feels like a different bank when you look at it in scope. It looks like a different bank, but it doesn't feel like a different one to me. So it's been a wonderful journey, and I hope one that will be able to continue as well.
That's awesome. And I think that really kind of crystallizes what everybody is looking for in a bank, too. A strong backbone financially and people that are very approachable. And definitely you and everybody on your team are definitely approachable. I love socializing with you guys on occasion.
We're a lot of
Um,
fun. We're a lot of fun.
you're a lot of fun. Now let's talk about fun, Francie, because what one of my favorite questions to ask people is what they did as a kid, because part of this podcast is talking about how people's creativity sparked their career. So let's head back to when you were young. What were some of the things that you loved to do?
When I say this, I'm sure that you can hear your parents or the people who supported you ringing in your ears. So when you were creating mischief in the house, what did your folks tell you to do? Get outside and play. Get
Yes.
outside and release that energy. So some of my most fond memories, and again, I grew up in Mount Vernon, Ohio. 15,000 population, very small town with that great hometown feeling. I don't know that that's different in a lot of the suburbs of Columbus, frankly. And where
Hmm.
we had to grow up, but it was a lovely community to be in. And my most favorite thing would be to get outside, to get on my bike, to ride around town, to stop and visit the neighbors, and most of them would provide me with some level of nourishment, with with a cold glass of water. My dad's restaurant was 2 blocks away. So here's something crazy. I'm a Greek. I'm Greek by heritage, and my father owned a restaurant. Does that shock anybody that a Greek's daughter and the Greeks had restaurants in the small town? I'd ride down to the restaurant. I'd go to the local drugstore. I'd go to the local hardware store. And it's that's kind of the beginning of just building your community and your relationship. And I just always enjoyed people. I just and the other thing that I remember as a kid growing up is that people were always very accepting of us. And we grew up in Knox County, and I think less than 1% of the population there spoke a language other than English. And my parents immigrated here and met and married in the States. But our
Oh.
primary language at home was Greek. And we were always the Greeks, or the Greeks kid, or, or young. And And it was lovely because they were interested in our culture and our background, and we were most happy to share. The last thing I'd say is that I think we always felt, not in a difficult way, but we felt this obligation to ensure that we were representing our country in the most proper fashion. And my dad was a small business owner in town, so he was always very conscientious to ensure that we were, you know, at our best behavior at all times and representing, our background and our heritage and our culture in the proper way. And we were very welcome in Mount Vernon.
Well, because of that, I mean, that is some great role modeling, to be perfectly honest, how your parents would treat people and believed how you should all treat people and represent yourselves. And that just kind of spills out into how you have developed as an adult too. And, there's not going to be very challenging to see how to connect the dots here on how you then got into this servant leader role. But let's talk a little bit about that. You obviously got into banking at a very young age. How did your career develop, based on those skills and some other creativity that you might have had along the way? Because as we were talking offline a little bit, it's not just working hard that gets you to that next level. How did you climb that ladder?
So I tell the story, and it's really the God's honest truth. So I was I was creative and quite mischievous at some point in my as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next in my life. And our restaurant opened at 5:30 in the morning and served breakfast, and it was a very, very busy breakfast schedule. And it was very difficult, Catherine, to get up and serve over a hot grill if you've had a extended evening the night before with your friends. And I was unable to fulfill that requirement. And my father was, beside himself, and my mother, who was a disciplinarian, really had enough. And they asked the bank manager from across the street at First Federal Savings and Loan. It was my senior year. I was, sowing some oats, trying to figure out what's next, and they convinced her to hire me to be their summer float teller. And and
Oh,
I was
wow.
yeah, and it really came because I was exploring and using my creativity, and uh, and because I wasn't showing up at work, I think my parents are going to either kill me or divorce one another. So,
Oh,
you know, I what I really, and again, it was just a summer job that turned into 4 summers, winter breaks, and it was just an extension of what I told you about earlier. Again, it was just using our ability as a financial institution to help people ultimately, you know, take care of the people, places, and things that they loved most. And
mm-hmm.
there's an emotional connection, there's a spiritual connection, there's a physical connection, but there's a financial connection that helps. It's not everything, but it does help that. And back to the servant leadership comment, I think that I can share with you that I've always felt. I don't know that there's not a big difference between the people who are able to offer help and service and the people who might be in need of that in whatever level of life that you're experiencing. So if you're in a position to be able to give, and I tell the story that the Salvation Army used to be across the street from our restaurant. And I can still hear that ringing of the bell in my ears. It was 2 weeks of holidays, and my dad would close the restaurant, and he would be counting down the change, and you could just hear the nickels and the quarters and the dimes hitting that register. And we didn't grow up with a lot, but we had plenty. And when we had extra, he'd flip a coin to me and he'd say, "Hey, go run across the street and throw that in the kettle." And I would do that, and then we would walk home together. We were just 2 blocks away, and my dad would always say to me, he said, "Look," he said, "if you ever have an extra dekada in Greek, it's called an extra dime in your pocket," he said, "and you've taken care of your family and your obligations," he said, "give it if you can give it." He said, "because when you need it most, it'll come back to you, and generally it'll come back to you twofold." So at the most basic level, the term of being a servant leader, I think, came from that thought process ringing in my ear, or it's my mother, cooking for the restaurant and cooking extra for some of those who, just weren't able to do that for themselves, and always being, a good neighbor, a good provider. And as it grew, I think in the organization's perspective, and that's why Fifth Third, I think, is such a wonderful corporate citizen, and I think we have, matched up perfectly. And that is, we understand that, for our communities to grow and thrive, we have to have a healthy financial system. And I think we
Oh,
take
yeah.
that very, very seriously, right? And it's Fifth Third, and around the square there are a multitude of other organizations and banks. all shapes and sizes. And we're very fortunate in Central Ohio that we all had that same philosophy. It's great for consumers because it's a competitive environment, but when it comes time to doing the right thing for our community and addressing some of the tough issues and giving back, I think all organizations, all those swords go down, and we're completely aligned. I don't think it's a secret. There's lots of great things that happened in Central Ohio over the last 10, 15 years, and look what's going to come. But a
Hmm.
sound, safe, cooperative financial services industry was a good foundation for our city to be able to use and grow from. And now it's our obligation as that next generation to continue that progress.
And I can just echo that the banks especially have been very, very generous in this community, helping, especially during the pandemic, making sure that, when PPP loans were hitting the fan, all the banks were really, really stepping up and just saying things like, just fill out the forms. We don't even know what's happening yet, but we do. All we have are these forms so far. And when we know what to do with them, we'll take care of it. So, it was really an all hands on deck, at least here, and I'm sure many other places in the country though too, but especially in Columbus, Ohio, where we were just like, we're in this together. So everybody really, really stepped up. But yeah, no one is more appreciative than me as a business owner that you guys were there to help out. If anything, just for some counseling, like, what's happening. I don't know, but we'll do this together. That sort of thing.
Well, and I kind of feel, the same way of the proceedings over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. What's happening with,
Oh yeah.
some of the industry and the bank failures. But there's a big distinction between the kinds of organization, the organization that we run, and the Central Ohio organizations, and what happened out in California. So that's all I'll say about that. But I think again, we're very fortunate to have a great solid banking system here, and look, I think we're all interested in trying to do our part in making this the most the most prosperous region in the country.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it is definitely people like you and your leadership that, drives everybody else to go that extra mile. So that we definitely appreciate. But now, we know that you're a hardworking, giving person. I want to know what do you do for fun? You are not always leaning into that left brain. You do have some fun activities that you do. So let's talk about one or all of them if you have more.
Well, I'll start. I think the two people who don't get credit for making me a great professional would be my two children. So
Oh,
they are now soon to be 25 and 22. And look, nobody grounds you more than the two human beings that look like you but act differently. you know, they force you to become, as creative as possible. And, I've been a working mom my entire career, obviously. And, they are wonderful people that have helped me understand and grow, whether that's spiritually or otherwise. And
mm-hmm,
learning
mm-hmm.
from them, and we all have children and we have this idea of what they should be or could be or want to be, but
Yeah.
allowing them to be who they really are to the core, to be the best possible version of themselves, has been the most wonderful journey to be a part of. And I think that journey in return makes me a better professional.
Yeah,
So
children
I love,
definitely let us know that or remind us that there's more to do than just work. Definitely.
yeah, your beautiful daughter is one example of that as well. And and I see how much you enjoy her,
Oh
through
my gosh,
all the
yes.
different communications, and 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 they drove me to be a better version of myself. If I were going to, if I get up every day and I chose to lead them and in care of others, I wanted to be as good as I could possibly be, for them and otherwise. But they're fun, so we like to do a lot of things together. My outlet has always been some level of physical activity. So whether that's my current energy level comes from Pilates. So I've gone through the whole running and weightlifting and boot camping, which I was always tired and sore, and evolving to more kind of strength training and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
resistance training. So I'm in that Pilates studio. A couple times a week, and the weather's good, and otherwise, I just love walking. I mean, and I love, you know, the smell of the air and getting out and clearing my head. And I put on my,
Hmm.
when you're always on, the secret for me is I do have to recharge. And I
Yes.
like to do that listening either to a good podcast or good music and spending a little time by myself reflecting. My daughter caught me last night. I had just come upstairs. It had been a long day. And I was sitting in a chair, and she FaceTimed me from college, and it was dark in there. And she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm re-energizing. You caught me. She goes, "Are you sitting in your room in the dark?" I said, "Yeah, I
Maybe.
just need to." I'm like, "Kinda. Let me call you right back." And she just, laughed. But I also love to play golf. So I'm a wonderful, terrible golfer. I'm a wonderful, terrible golfer. And it keeps me coming back. And people don't, like, true golfers don't get this, but I never keep score. So if I feel like I've hit the ball well, if I feel like the progress is good, or if I've had a blow up hole, guess what? The next hole is new for me. And I pour a
I love
little
that.
cocktail for myself. I use the cup holder as my speaker. I put my phone in the cup holder, and the music kind of resonates. I have a little swing juice, as I call it, Catherine, and I just, you know, everything can go away that happened to me that day, and I'm focusing on trying to like really good connection with my club and the golf ball, and then
I love that. That's two amazing ways to really unplug. But I do know that you like to cook too. So
yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit. Um, what kind of cooking do you like to do?
So my mother is turning 93 this year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and my daughter and I, Alexander, had embarked upon this about about 5 years ago. We said, Yaga's not getting any younger, and you know what? I really want to make sure that I understand how she does what she does in our most favorite recipes. And there's one thing to read the recipes, so we had her document them all. But
Hmm.
Catherine, what did they say? It's a long way from the mouth to the hand. And
Yes.
we have been watching her make those recipes and tweaking what she's written. And now, her memory's not as good as it used to be, and she's not always able to do the things that she once did. And they're all on me. So last weekend, it's pasticcio is like a Greek lasagna, I'd say. And I have just perfected her recipe on pasticcio. I'm so proud of myself. And there are about 10 of those recipes that I'm trying to make sure, whether it's her Greek cookies or kouraikia, whether it's her spanakopitess and tiropites. And I'm really, and every time you got to tweak it a little bit because you're like, Mom, this doesn't taste exactly like yours. What am I missing? So I have so enjoyed it because it grounds me to my heritage and my culture. It's something that, my children enjoy as well. And look, if you love to eat, you love to cook. And it really, I enjoy it. I do not enjoy baking as much because you don't really know if until it's over and you've tasted the final product if you've done a good job baking. I think that's
Right.
why I so enjoy cooking because you can kind of modify and tweak it as you go, right? If your sauce
Yes.
isn't exactly right, you can add this, or you can add that, or you can taste as you go. Well, you can't really figure out if the cookie's going to rise right or if it tastes right till it's over. So I'm kind of over the baking piece, which I am really good at a baklava, by the way. So I can make a
Oh my God.
baklava
That's my favorite.
perfectly, her pasticcio perfectly, and I love lentil soup, so I think I'm good with that. But there's about 7 other recipes that I'm still trying to work on.
It's funny that you bring up the whole baking versus cooking thing. It always seems like that everybody picks a team on that. My husband loves cooking. I like baking. And I don't know why that is. For me, it just feels better when I bake rather than when I cook. But yours is obviously the opposite.
Baking is so unforgiving. It's just not. It's
It's
just
very
not.
true. I think I like the decorating part of it. Maybe that's just my art thing kind of kicking in. Like if I make a cake or cupcakes, I get to decorate them at the end or
I
something.
know you're allowed. You're supposed to ask all the questions, but when did you discover that you had such a talent for art? How did that come about?
That's an interesting story because I was in, I want to say, the fifth grade, and a teacher had me and another student. I don't know how this happened, but they took us to the art store because they said, you two are artists. You know, what happens a lot in school, people are kind of declared whether they're an artist or not, which I think is a little unfair. But in this case, it worked in my favor because, you know, I did not have, there's no way I could have asked my parents to spend money on professional art supplies. So the school bought my first set of pastels and paper and pens and things like that. And I just was like, oh, well, I guess I'm an artist then. And I just kind of pursued it after that. And I didn't know what my career was going to be necessarily, but I knew it was going to be an artist of some kind. And that, of course, pained my parents because I would be a starving artist. But I kind of spun that a little into a marketing career. And now I have this other business too. And now going back to art, you know, so it's kind of come full circle a little bit for me. But that's how it all kind of started. It was like basically somebody else declaring that this was an actual thing. And I just was like, oh, okay, well, I like this. So I'm just going to go for it, I guess. But had that not happened, I don't know what I would have done. So yay for teachers.
You know, amen. Yay for teachers. That's, you know, none of us would be where we are today without their care, love, and concern. Their
Absolutely.
Because, you know, your parents know the least amount, right? So if a teacher's
I swear they're surviving. I don't know if you came from a big family, but I have 4 other siblings. And yeah, I swear in a lot of days it was just survival on their parts, let alone what my kid is going to be when she grows up.
Well, you know, you were survival of the fittest. There was just my brother and I, and he was 4 years older, and he was, you know, the little more perfect child. So God, you know, that was a lot to live up to, and I've already told you my past, but just the two of us, you know, and but we had a big family in that we were very much involved with our church, and you know, we would go to church every Sunday, and that was our day of family.
Yeah.
My dad owned the restaurant, and then eventually he closed it on Sunday so we could spend the day together. And we really felt like we had a big family because, you know, we would actually call a lot of my parents' friends at church aunt and uncle. And
Oh yeah, it sounds like you had the whole town basically as a family.
it was nice, you know, it was nice. So you never felt alone, but I know what you're talking about in terms of big families and the dynamics that they have, and that's kind of neat. And it's funny because then you look back and like my brother and I, but I'm sure all 4 of your siblings, all 4 of you are very different. You know,
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's crazy that we were even raised by the same people.
like, well, we switched it back. I mean, did that? Are we?
Exactly. Are we even related? We have a lot of those conversations, especially with my 5th brother. There's very little, few photographs, you know, of him, and we're like, when did you even show up? We don't even know, you know, just another kid just shows up. But yeah, it's all part of a process, and you know, and how we're raised and how we're discovered, and you know, how we just kind of like you just kind of fell into like, you know, relationship building was a strength for you, and you have basically spun that into quite the amazing career, and you're quite a role model for a number of, you know, young women looking up the ladder and saying, oh good, there's somebody up there that looks like me that's also a woman. So that we appreciate for sure. And I appreciate your time so much today. I really, really do. I do know if you're going to be doing anything more with all those recipes and things of your mom's. Are they just going to be written down and passed on, or can they become a book or blog or something?
Thinking about that. Not funny. I really have. We have videotaped her, so we not only have them written, but now we have them on video. So I think there's something that we can do there. I mean, even if it's just, you know, to our friends and family that they can remember her by, because again, we're very fortunate she's still with us, and she'll dive into that kitchen, by golly, if she sees us doing something. But I'm really glad. I guess, you know, I would say to everyone, look, if you can do this ahead of time, you know, no time like the present. Make sure you preserve the past and the culture. For me, it's culture and heritage, you know, but it's also, you know, as you move forward, it's just something so special. Everyone has their moms. How many people have you talked to? Boy, I really wish I had that, you know, that one favorite recipe that I could enjoy. And you know, look, Catherine, you know, you're very complimentary and very kind, but you know, I think the other thing that people can keep talking about is how do you keep exercising, you know, the other side of the brain, and you know, another way to do that, and I have found is that, you know, my involvement in many other boards around the city, I get myself out of my day to day activity, but it really helps me broaden my horizons, think differently, be innovative. So I always encourage people to think about if they want to grow in a different area in their career right now, or their personal life isn't able to give them that path immediately. Think about giving back, and when it's so funny because
Mhm.
you say I'm giving back, you know, but I have always gotten more than I believe I've ever given, whether I'm
Yeah.
serving on a board or whether I'm mentoring. And everybody wants to put me on the finance committee. And I really, like, no, I do that enough during the day. I want to exercise a
Right.
different part of my
Right.
brain.
Can I be in the
Yeah,
marketing committee?
I love marketing. I love joining the marketing committee or any other, that I can kind of work a different muscle, and I think that's
Right.
really helped me. And look, every business, there's the 80/20 rule that applies. There's so many tenets of running profits, not for profits, et cetera, that you can provide, but there are nuances to that. And I think, that's one of my secrets, I think, has always been able when we're encouraged to give back and to serve, those discussions and that what I've learned and the people that I've met have really helped me, I think, far beyond what I've given back. So another, one little tidbit of, what else can you do while you're, look, a lot of people are going to be, they aren't able to work professionally, but there's lots that they can continue to do to help re-energize
Yes.
themselves,
Yes.
and still take care of what they need to take care of, because as women, we know that our checkerboard is full all the time. And
That it is. There's not
it
even
really
any squares to move to sometimes. You're like, wait a minute, I think I got too many pieces on here.
You know what? So be kind to yourself. It's okay. It's okay. Be
It
kind to
is.
yourself.
It
Things
is.
will work themselves out.
Thank you so much, Francie. I appreciate you and, like I said, what you do in the community, and I appreciate our friendship. I really, really enjoy talking to you today. So thank you very much.
You're the best. Thanks for the offer, and I look forward to seeing you at our next event. Take care.
Awesome.